Manipur has established a modern, highly educated foundation, distinguishing itself through significant investment in human capital. The state's overall unemployment rate stands at 5.2%, higher than the national average of 3.1%, but not yet indicative of a systemic breakdown. However, isolating the demographic aged 15 to 29 reveals a massive statistical fracture in the labor market. While the national youth unemployment rate is 9.9%, Manipur's rate more than doubles that figure, reaching 22.9%. This gap persists even when compared to regional neighbors like Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, marking Manipur as a severe outlier in the northeast. The central tension lies in the fact that this high unemployment exists alongside some of the strongest educational metrics in the country. Economists identify this as a structural mismatch, a failure of the economic base to absorb the specific workforce the state is producing. Standard models blame high unemployment on a lack of skills or a lack of motivation. The 2025 Periodic Labor Force Survey data shows that for Manipur, these common explanations do not apply. Explaining the 22.9% figure requires moving past assumptions about unskilled youth to dissect the state's labor data layer by layer. High youth unemployment is typically expected to correlate with a high rate of youth disengagement. The primary metric for this is NEET, youth not in employment, education, or training. A high NEET rate usually signals a discouraged worker effect, where young people have stopped seeking opportunities entirely. The national average for youth disengagement sits at 25.0%. In neighboring Assam, that figure climbs even higher, to 31.7%. Manipur, however, records a NEET rate of just 16.6%, well below both the national and regional baselines. This indicates that young Manipuris are not idle. They are either in the classroom or actively competing for roles in the job market. The data shows that the effort to find work is high, even when the results are not materializing. Because disengagement is low, the 22.9% unemployment rate represents a systemic shortage of jobs rather than a lack of ambition. If the youth are ready to work, we must look at the quality and composition of the labor supply they are offering. One of the state's primary strengths is the remarkably high participation of women in highly skilled, professional environments. Educational attainment is exceptionally high. 84.1% of residents aged 15 and older have completed at least secondary education. That is significantly higher than the Indian national average of 63.7%. Furthermore, the labor force participation rate of 46.0% confirms that these educated residents are entering the market at higher rates than the national average. This high participation is most evident in the metrics for women. In rural areas, the female labor force participation rate reaches 58.4%, far outpacing the national rural average of 49.5%. Nationally, the urban ratio of female to male workers in professional and technical roles is 48.5%. In urban Manipur, that ratio hits 131.2%, meaning women significantly outnumber men in these skilled occupations. Manipur has built a highly educated, gender-inclusive workforce. The 22.9% unemployment rate is not a crisis of skill, but a crisis of absorption. To find the bottleneck, we have to look at the demand side, the actual structure of the jobs available to these graduates. There is a notable wage paradox. The regular salaried positions that do exist in the state pay significantly above the national average. Urban salaried workers in Manipur earn roughly 33,000 rupees a month, compared to a national average of 28,000. These high wages signal that formal jobs are in high demand, but the physical number of these roles is extremely limited. Because the formal sector is so small, these high earnings only reach a narrow sliver of the population. The vast majority of the workforce, 79.9% of men, is concentrated in self-employment. This informality is widespread, covering 67.2% of women and over 70% losing forces into focus, a high-quality human capital supply, and a stagnant economic demand. This creates a mechanical failure in the economy. A high-volume pipeline of educated workers hits a narrow formal demand bottleneck, resulting in a 22.9% spillover of unemployed youth. Manipur has successfully addressed the difficult supply-side challenges of development, such as literacy and gender parity in skilled work. However, these achievements are stalled by a lack of formal industrial activity and private sector expansion. The daily reality remains dominated by the informal market, where trade is small-scale and formal growth is limited. For the thousands of students graduating each year, this mismatch is the defining reality of their careers. Individual ambition is not enough to fill a macroeconomic void. Addressing this requires structural intervention, policies designed specifically to scale the formal private sector and create an industrial base. Until scalable industry is built to match the state's current level of human capital, Manipur's educational success will remain a generational economic crisis.